our theme for this year, our vision for this year, which is believe. And it comes from that verse in Mark 11:23, which says, 24, which says, this is the reason I urge you to boldly believe for whatever you ask for in prayer and be convinced that you've received it and it will be yours. There's no reason for us not to believe that 2022 won't be a year that is as significant or more so than any other year, irrespective of the instability that we might have in front of us. I firstly wanted to just start this year thanking all of you guys for contributing in the way that you have done over the last couple of years. I didn't really want to begin 2022 without just pausing and celebrating and thanking you for the way that you have led and served with excellence during a season that could have really just given you the free pass just to tap out and say, no, look, it's just all too hard. And I reckon nobody would have question that, and you would have rightly have been able to do that, but you haven't. There's just something about the leaders that we have in the life of our church that say, no, we're going to go for it. We're going to do everything that we can, empowered by the Spirit of God, to continue to reach people and have them find faith in Jesus and to see his church continue to grow and be healthy. And so I need to thank you for that, because, churches don't move forward without the yes of the people that have been called to serve. And so that's you guys. So it's important to stop and just celebrate you, because you've just brought so much to the life of the church over the last couple of years. And, Rachel and I could not have at all have been able to achieve anything like we've seen over those last couple of years without the brilliant leaders and team that we have. So I wanted to make sure you know how thankful we are. And I also wanted to, again, just to point to this year and the invitation for us to be the kind of people that boldly believe for what God's got in store for us as we move forward as leaders this year. So this is the question I think we should be asking. What is it that we should be setting our leadership sights on and believing God for in 2022? Where are you going, and what will you need to do to get there in 2022? And I want you to think about that. Where are you going, and what will you need to do to get there in 2022 as a leader? And does your answer sound like you need to boldly believe God for it? Or does your answer sound like it's the kind of thing you can just achieve on your own with a lot of hard work? Because really it needs to be the kind of thing that only God can do. And I also want to just do something here. I want to bring some clarity about that question, because I want to differentiate your leadership goals with the leadership goals of, or the goals of the things that you're leading. So as leaders in 2022, I want you to know that I want you to own and know what your own personal leadership dreams are. What will you be doing to move yourself toward that end, that personal leadership dream or leadership goal? So it's not a question about where's the church going, or where's your team going, or where's your life group going. It's a question of where are you going, and how will you, and what will you do to move yourself and lead yourself in the direction that God is taking you in your own leadership journey in 2022. So this thought is all about stretching your believe muscle. So I want you to kind of walk away from this in the next few minutes feeling like you've been to a bit of a gym session, where you're a little bit sore, a little bit, oh, wow, that was a bit rough, but knowing, wow, that stretched my believe muscle. And now I can embark upon this next week, believing in a way that I wasn't believing before, believing God for the big things, the boldly believing things for 2022. Does that sound okay? And so I was thinking about this morning, and God showed me a picture of an egg, and it was an egg that was hatching, and I felt like God say to me that is what this year will feel like for us as leaders, that we have been somewhat enclosed, restricted, trapped, maybe stuck, restrained, cocooned, or even entombed maybe. But this is the year where we're being called to boldly believe that we can break free from that small world. And it's not a small world of your own creating. It's been put around you. And I really do get a sense that 2022 is a year where we can begin to see again the infinite possibilities of a free life outside of that. I want you to take a hold of that picture. But this is the thing. If we've been used to small, sometimes it means that we've lost sight of the possibilities of big, of bold belief. Small can sometimes mean small believing. And I think it will take a bit of work for us in 2022 to believe big again, to have bold belief again. And so I want to take us to a verse in Luke chapter 5 where Jesus is talking to Peter. And it's a familiar story about Jesus asking the disciples to cast out their nets, to go back into the water and fish again after a night of not catching anything. And so it says this in Luke chapter 5, verse 4 to 8. It says, Jesus sat down and taught the people from the boat. And when he'd finished, he said to Peter, now row out to deep water to cast your nets, and you will have a great catch. Master, Peter replied, we've just come back from fishing all night and didn't catch a thing. But if you insist, we'll go out again, let down our nets because of your word. And when they pulled up their nets, they were shocked to see a huge catch of fish, and their nets were ready to burst. And they waved their business partners in other boats for help, and they ended up completely filling both boats with fish until they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this astonishing miracle, he knelt at Jesus' feet and begged him. He said, go away from me, Master, for I am a sinful man. And before I get into that, I just think it's quite interesting to note that Peter identified his unbelief with sin. Not that he didn't believe Jesus, but he didn't believe that Jesus would do what he said he would do, that he didn't believe the miracle was possible. So it's almost like a sin of faithlessness. And I just want us to be challenged by that. Wow, if God's put something in front of us, called us to something significant, and we just don't really think it's possible, I think that's something that should challenge us. Maybe we do need to just take stock and think, wow, there's a significant issue if we're not willing to embrace the thing that God said he would do in and through our life. And so I want to link that whole idea with bold believing being the same as launching out into the deep, going into deep water, going into those places where you're just not sure that God's going to come through with what he said he would come through with, where there's a tension, there's a tension of there's a tension of disbelief, unbelief, faithlessness. Is it possible? Will God do what he said he would do? And so I've just got a few thoughts around that, about what it's like to launch out into the deep, to boldly believe. And the first one is that launching out into the deep, to boldly believe, is to be obedient to an irrational invitation from Jesus. To be obedient to an irrational invitation from Jesus. I don't want us to get to the end of 2022 and regret saying no to Jesus, to the big challenge that he's invited us to step into. I just want to push on this a bit more, that there's logic and there's rationale and there's strategy and there's metrics and however, there's also God. There's something about the irrational invitation from Jesus here, which caused the professional in the boat who did this on a daily basis to say, this is impossible, but your word, because you said it, I'll do it. And so launching out in the deep is saying yes to an irrational invitation. I almost am saying that's like a warning. Like, if you haven't already got a hold of this for your life for 2022 as a leader, well, I'm going to talk about how we can get there in a second. The second thing we see here is that launching out into the deep and boldly believe is to face your fears. And Peter, fear of failure, even fear of success. What happens if the nets fill up? What happens if the boats begin to sink? What happens if this is more than I can handle? I just, whether we're fearful of failure or fearful of success, both of those a disobedience. We have to be willing to trust that God knows who we are. And even if we don't believe in ourselves, he believes in us. And this whole series that we've been doing at the moment about the battle to believe is challenging that idea that we need to see ourselves the way God believes us. So launching out into the deep is being willing to face our fears, whether it's fear of failure, fear of success, or even fear of what other people might think of us. When Peter went out into the deep, it says that he called his other business partners over. And I can just imagine that as he's going out there into the deep water where he's literally just been before, not catching anything the night before, that his friends might have thought he was crazy, that his friends might have thought he was stupid, that his friends might have thought, what a waste of time, what a waste of energy. It would be better for you to come back tomorrow and just do what you've always done. Why would you listen to this guy? What does he know about fishing? He's a carpenter. And again, the fear of being judged, the fear of criticism. And I just think this is a season in 2022 where we've got to be the kind of leaders that we go for things that God puts in front of us, even if it doesn't look rational, even if it looks like it might lead us toward failure or success that we can't handle. So that's the second thing. And finally, launching out into the deep, boldly believing, is to be dependent upon your community. So that's what we see in this text, that Peter was dependent upon his partners to see the miracle completely fulfilled. And I just love the fact that winning in 2022 for you personally in your personal leadership journey, and to see those bold beliefs that God's got for you, will not happen on your own. When we go out into the deep water, we have to go out with other people. We have to be in community. And so I am asking you this question. Who are you inviting out into the deep water? Who are you inviting to join you in the deep water? Who are you saying, hey, let's go out here together. Let's boldly believe. This isn't just something that I'm convicted about on my own, but I've got a real sense that this is something that we're going to do together. And that's another big ask, because now you're not only carrying some risk for yourself, but you're carrying the risk for other people. But that's the call of leadership. And I just get a sense that in 2022, not only will corporately as a church, it will depend upon the willingness of the entire church to be able to be a part of the bold belief, but in your personal leadership life, you're going to have to be inviting people into that journey with you. Hey, I need your help. I need your support. I've got a big dream. I've got a big heart for this, and I know I can't achieve it on my own. So here's the homework as we wrap up in the last few minutes. I want you to take some time this week, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, set yourself up with some time to spend with God in prayer, and the kind of prayer where you listen and don't just talk, and seek God for his word for those deep water dreams, those bold believing dreams for your own personal leadership journey in 2022. Spend some time with God. When you do that, write it down. It might just be one thought. It might be a few ideas. It might be a project. It might be something that you've been putting off for years, and now God's reminding you to re-engage with that. Whatever that is, it may be coming to you now, but just set aside some time, go to God. God, what is it? What's that bold? And how do you know if it's bold enough? Well, when you read it back to yourself, it needs to look impossible. When you look at, wow, is this possible? No, it shouldn't be. It should be absolutely irrational and impossible. And then you're close to what God's saying is your leadership goal for 2022.